whenever she would say, Dad, they won't give me the ball. They won't give me the ball. They won't play with me. They won't do this. He would say, go get the ball.
I'm Phoebe Foy with Quantopian. Quantopian inspires people around the world to solve today's hardest investment challenges. Today, in our Women in FinTech series, I'm joined by Jean Donnelly, Executive Director at FinTech Sandbox. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. It's great.
So why don't we just start the conversation with you telling me a little bit more about FinTech Sandbox and what you do there.
Sure. FinTech Sandbox is a Boston-based nonprofit that helps early-stage startups get access to data to advance product development. So we vet different startups across the US, Canada, and UK in terms of solutions that need access to premium data sets from the vendors that we work with. And so we have over 37 partners that give access to data, and we've helped about 110 startups since we went live in 2015.
Wow, that's amazing. And what exactly do you do there? Can you walk me through? I'm sure no day is typical, but walk me through a day.
I also like to say, so we're a startup that helps other startups.
Yep.
So from the standpoint of each day we're talking to new startups that are interested in learning more about what the data sets are that we have. We're talking to data partners for existing data and making introductions, getting the startups access, reviewing contracts. And then we're funded by large financial institutions and technology companies. We're interested in seeing new innovations. So we're also working with them in terms of what are the types of innovations they're looking for and doing a lot of matching in order to make that happen. We kind of look at our number one metric is collisions. So how many collisions can we help for startups get access to? And so it starts with data partners and moves to financial institutions. So hopefully helping them develop product and get them to market quicker.
Okay, great. And are most of these startups, they seek you out for this assistance?
Yeah. So we're pretty lucky. If you actually Google financial data, we come up.
Okay, great.
From a pure natural SEO perspective of people looking for access to data, because data is pretty expensive and a pretty big hurdle for early stage companies. So, and we also partner with about 17 other accelerators.
Okay, wow.
So when they have startups that need data, we have the options to help them with that.
Got it. And how did you get started with FinTech Sandbox?
Yeah, so I came on board before they went live when they were trying to kind of get processes up and running, and then they pretty much asked me if I wanted to run it. But I had worked previously at GE Capital and Fidelity Investments, and it was actually through some contacts here in the Boston area with folks there and also a couple startups. They said, hey, we're trying to get this off the ground. Would you be interested in being a part of it? So.
Interesting. And how different is what you do at FinTech Sandbox from those previous positions?
It is, yeah. Life of a startup is you know, it's very, very different than life of a corporate. It's very freeing in a lot of ways in terms of the types of things that you get to do. Yeah. No day is typical. But it's also, there's no safety net, you know, really from that perspective. So it's taking that step off that ledge in terms of, okay, if this doesn't work, you know, what will we do in order to, you know, if we run out of money, what happens next? Those are the types of things that go through my mind each day when I go home. But it's also pretty amazing because you can iterate and try a lot of different things. So you're like, all right, this didn't work, so let's try this.
Yes.
So the ability to fail fast is pretty critical.
So with your previous positions that you mentioned in GE and Fidelity, were those more finance and this is more tech and data, or how would you describe it to
Yeah, so I actually started my career as an engineer. I went to school for engineering, started at GE Aircraft Engines, spending 6 years as a process engineer. Kind of quickly realized, well, I loved engineering and I liked the hands-on aspects. I wasn't the best coder. So if you're coding aircraft engine parts that are going to go in planes that maybe a lot of people would rely on, it was like, I don't know if this is the best fit, but I really love process. So thinking about manufacturing processes and how you design and outline different processes to create these components was something that I really fell in love with, you know, in terms of that. And so then had opportunities to then lay out process lines for new aircraft engines that were being rolled out over in Wales and the rehab, you know, facilities and that sort of thing. So that kind of match and mix. And then from that, actually, GE was a great place of actually, oh, okay, you're in aircraft engines. Oh, you got these skills? Well, yeah, why don't you come to GE Capital and apply them to insurance processes?
Wow.
But it was really about how do you quantify processes in, you know, financial services, in this case, insurance, and what does that look like? And so it was really bringing that skill set to financial services.
Very interesting. And do you enjoy the financial services side? Do you miss the hands-on?
Yeah, it is a mix. I would say there are times when you sit there and say, oh, it was kind of fun to say, I know how an aircraft engine works, so that's kind of cool. It's not quite as sexy as I know how insurance products work, or otherwise. So I do miss it, but I think there's just so much opportunity within financial services, especially today where we're at that point of disruption where the typical products don't work for so many people, and there's such an opportunity to redesign the entire life cycle from like the front office, middle office, and back office of how this is done.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that disruption, can you describe like what you've been seeing over the years and how it's changed so much in finance?
Yeah, so probably when we started, it was all about financial services or fintechs, the startups disrupting the existing incumbents and really saying, well, we're going to be a new digital bank or online bank, or we're going to do this, and people will stop using the existing institutions, especially after the crisis and stuff. But I think what we're starting to see is there's this realization on both sides that each party has a strength that can help us move faster. So for the startups, acquiring customers can be a huge hurdle, and can take a lot of time and a lot of energy. Understanding the regulatory environment and framework is really difficult as well.
Definitely.
So those are two things that institutions, have spent a lot of time at doing. So really being able to leverage that from the institution's perspective. And then for the institutions, what they're not used to doing is trialing something to fail fast and moving quickly and pivoting. So really to come up with a solution and have that solution adapt to the customer base that you have. And so what we've seen is that when the partnerships come together between the two, you can come up with a better product and get it to market faster.
Very interesting. Taking a step back to you studying engineering, when did you know you wanted to pursue an engineering technical path?
So one story is it was the furthest school my parents would let me apply to was an engineering school. It was all the way in New York. So that was hard. No, but also in terms of I really enjoyed the math and science in high school. And so going and visiting different schools and going to an engineering school and seeing some of the labs and building things, that it really appealed to me as well. So I think that is really why I ended up doing it, as well as being able to go a little further afield.
Great. Did you have any mentors in high school or college then that really helped you in those fields?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to go to an engineering school, which from a mentor perspective was interesting. I also played basketball in college, and having other women who were engineers and computer scientists made such a big difference of actually saying, oh, okay, they can do it, then I can do it. And then also having that framework to help you balance activities, because going to college, is kind of could be a free-for-all depending upon, so different than prior to that. So I think for me that made a big difference. And I actually just got together with some of the women for a reunion recently, and just to see where everyone's at like so many years later.
Wonderful.
But,
Are you seeing less of a disparity now, you think, between the men and women ratio in engineering and tech fields? Are you seeing more women? Is it still really slow?
Yeah, I mean, I do think we're seeing more. I think it's slower than anybody would like.
Yes.
But as we were talking about, you're starting to see visibility front on conferences and otherwise where people are making that effort of having women panelists, not just women moderators when they're trying to balance a panel. So I think there is a conscious efforts being done. And I think that's part of it. It has to really be a conscious effort, and it has to be part of the makeup of your requirements of what you're doing, in terms of how you look at it. I've also talked to some really interesting startups. One came to me at early stage. It was two gentlemen, co-founders, who said, we want to find a female CTO. I was like, oh, right. They're like, I was like, oh, that unicorn, is what you want. But they were like, well, no, we just figured if we start with balance at the top, then it will allow us to grow accordingly and to continue that balance throughout. So I really appreciated that and that thoughtfulness as they were starting out.
And not just having a token woman.
Exactly, exactly.
Definitely. Speaking of like the ugly side of it, have you faced challenges being a woman in this field?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I could go back to like the time I worked in an office where you had to walk a quarter mile to the women's bathroom because there was nothing on 3 floors that you were in, in order to find that. So there's, there's just kind of those basic inherent aspects. There's aspects of conversations. So, in terms of, are you heard? And how do you make yourself heard when you're at a round table with different people who have, either conflicting ideas or even similar ideas, and kind of getting your voice out there. So, and it takes persistence, I think, in order to really make that happen and to move it forward.
Are you used to that now? Like if you walk into a meeting and it's a conference table and you're the only woman, are you comfortable with that, or is it still kind of a shock? And
no, I would say I'm comfortable.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with it just because with the engineering background, there's a lot of times only a woman like in the team. I like it if there are other women because I just know that there'll be a little bit more balanced conversation. Sometimes with different voices are getting access to, so it doesn't surprise me. But at the same time, you also have to deal with what the realities of where things are and how those conversations go. I was saying I actually just had a meeting. There was a bank we were trying to meet with who we wanted to meet with their chief data officer to talk about data offerings. I had followed up with him multiple times and get a response. I had an older gentleman who works with us who does consulting work, reach out to him, got a response from him. So it was it still exists. It still exists. But I'm also like, do I make an example of this? Well, I want to get data from them. So I'm like, whatever works.
Exciting.
yeah, in terms of moving forward.
So probably one of my final questions is, with your challenges, your successes, what advice could you offer to a woman, whether it's high school, college, thinking of pursuing a career in finance and tech? What can you give them as advice?
So one of the nuggets I've heard from a mentor, which I think rings true, who was like the only daughter with like 3 older brothers, and whenever she would say, "Dad, they won't give me the ball. They won't give me the ball. They won't play with me. They won't do this," he would say, "Go get the ball." Like in terms of if you're in an environment and there's something that you're after, go get it. Don't let the other aspects of how the dynamics are in the room, are you comfortable or not. At the end of the day, go after the goal. What is the goal that you're trying to achieve, and make that happen. And then worry about a little bit the consequences afterwards. And I think today is even a better environment for that. Hopefully you're not judged quite as much because we're going to get the ball. So I do love that as an advice aspect. The other thing too is I can cite examples where other women did open doors for me, whether it was getting my first job at GE, transferring from aircraft engines into financial services, following someone else who had done it. And even this position here, it was really strong women who I had met, who had networked with over time, had been friends or colleagues who said, hey, there's this opportunity, and we're willing to make that, connection, willing to put, their reputation to a certain extent on the line to do so. So I think that's really critical.
Yeah, I think it's great if we can continue the women networks and help one another. Probably final question, what goals for yourself and FinTech Sandbox do you have for the next few years? Yeah,
so we just got our nonprofit status last year. So really in terms of building out our programming to look at solutions for the underbanked and the underserved. Is a passion area for myself and for our founders. And so I think we have a long way to go there, and there's a lot we can do there. So doing that, we're a team of 3 full-time people and a couple interns. So really we have a lot of opportunity for growth, and we have a ways to go for world domination. So let's see how that goes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for today. It was really interesting to hear your story.
No, this was great. Thank you so much, Phoebe.